All right, welcome to the NAMLE and MediaSmarts hangout on youth media. This is our second attempt at this. Hopefully some of you are joining in. This is a kickoff event for Media Literacy Week, and I'd like to turn things over to Matthew Johnson of MediaSmarts to tell us a little bit about Media Literacy Week this year.
Thanks. Well, we've been doing at MediaSmarts, we've been doing Media Literacy Week in collaboration with the Canadian Teachers Federation for 9 years now, and it's been getting bigger every year. Every year we have more and more collaborators who, across Canada and increasingly in other countries as well, are organizing events that promote and showcase media literacy education. Every year we have a theme that we use sort of just as an organizing principle, and it's up to the individual groups to participate how closely they want to stick to the theme. This year our theme is the positive uses of social media, because we really wanted to shine a spotlight on some of the amazing things that young people are doing with the digital tools that they have at their command.
Great. So I'd like to introduce our panelists. We're going to be having a little bit of a conversation about youth media in the United States and some connections between the opportunities and challenges that social media pose and offer in the youth media environment. So I'll let everybody introduce themselves. We'll start with Lucia from Free Spirit Media.
Hello, nice to meet everyone. I'm Lucia. I'm the production technology manager at Free Spirit Media. I'm here in Chicago, and we run video production classes and news literacy for mostly 13 to 18-year-olds in and out of school. We have a variety of, most of our programs are somewhat related to news and journalism, but we also do arts integration, a lot of social media integration, and some narrative as well. So I'm looking forward to sharing a bit with you all about how we've used social media in the classroom as a pedagogical tool, and really taking advantage of our young people's knowledge and experience living in that world to sort of contribute to new distribution models for their own content as well.
Awesome. Next we have Lucy Eagleson from Outside the Lens in San Diego.
Hi, I'm Lucy from Outside the Lens. I'm the program coordinator, and we basically work to empower youth with media, be it just digital media or social media, starting with photography and then working into news, journalism, and also narrative work, so both video and more along the lines of filmmaking. And we are in multiple schools, starting with 3rd grade all the way up to 12th grade here in the San Diego and greater area. And we also have an educators portal that educators in other parts of the country can access and use our curriculum to teach with.
Great. And finally we have Alan Berry from The Lamp in New York City.
Hi everyone, I'm Alan from The Lamp. It's the Learning About Multimedia project. We travel all around New York City delivering media literacy workshops. We are a mobile organization, so we bring the technology wherever we go, mostly in underserved communities. We go to schools, libraries, community centers, wherever will have us, and whomever will have us. We teach K through 12 youth, we teach young adults, senior citizens, we do family workshops, we do professional development for teachers as well.
Great. For those of you just joining us, we're slowly getting our viewers back here that were on the first hangout. Again, I'm David Cooper Moore from the NAMLE Leadership Council. I do have to put in a plug for our upcoming conference in Philadelphia, hashtag NAMLE 2015. We'll all get our plugs in at the end as well. So I wanted to start off the conversation. The theme for Media Literacy Week this year is the positive uses of social media. And I guess, you know, youth media seems to be a field where social media has more than ever created a distribution outlet and a connecting outlet for young people creating media in structured and less structured environments. And I was wondering if each of you could maybe share some of your experiences with some of that positive power of social media to connect and to get the word out in the youth media field. So whoever would like to start.
I'll start. I think for us, using social media as a sort of gateway to our curriculum has become so crucial to get buy-in from the students. We use it as kind of it not only is our gateway, but it also bolsters what we're teaching them because they understand the importance of it, and then they see the effects when they post on their own social media of having a better, well-framed photograph. Or, for example, yesterday I was trying to teach how to bring emotion into portraiture, and so I taught through using emoticons and how an emoticon can match a portrait and sort of tying those two elements together. So we use it as really a platform for teaching, and then it's both process oriented and then product in the sense of they see the final outcomes on their social media. So we use it in both the front and back end of our process.
Cool.
I guess I'll go next.
Yep.
So, yeah, social media is a big component of our program tracks. For instance,
Who is that?
Someone's drinking coffee.
All right.
For instance, we have a digital literacy track where we teach youth how to responsibly and actively engage with social media, teach them how they're constructing their identity online, what's good to put up, what might you want to think twice about, what you're signing away when you sign up to these free sites, social media sites. We also like to incorporate what they're doing in terms of their the production component of the workshops. We recently did a program in the Bronx in conjunction with Everyday Africa, and Everyday Africa is an Instagram site where photographers post mobile pictures with positive representations of Africa to speak back to the traditional representations of Africa, the war, the malnutrition, safari animals, typical images. So we took that concept and looked at the Bronx and what traditional representations of the Bronx are in media, and had the students produce positive representations of the Bronx and put it up on Instagram. So they have an Instagram site, and hopefully they'll continue with that as well.
Do you find that the immediacy of something like Instagram helps students kind of see the so what of these kinds of new representations that they're doing?
Oh, certainly. I mean, most of our students are on Instagram. That seems to be the new cool social media. Kind of, it's taken over Facebook. It seems like in our program. So having them actually utilize that as a tool for learning and getting their projects out and celebrating their projects as well. Having people come see their photographs and comment on their photographs and have their friends come, have their families come. It's a great way to get them involved.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the constantly changing landscape of social media. But first, Lucia, do you want to share some examples?
Yeah, so Free Spirit Media is like primarily we focus on journalism and have the organization's about 15 years old. And so that's really where our base is. And, so as sort of social media entered into the conversation a few years ago, we've looked at as how can we integrate social media into the curriculum as a way to like make journalism more participatory. And it really created this great opening because like as we know, young people are like maybe not as engaged in getting their news from traditional sources. So it was really a question of like, well, as youth media makers, how can we reach other youth to spread the word about these journalistic projects that we're working on? Mm-hmm. And what's emerged with both our news program that we do in the South and West Side and with Real Shy Youth is thinking about using these various tools, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, audio pieces, just various types of content and putting it out there in different ways of how that changes the experience of the audience in creating youth media, which has been a great opportunity for us because I think something that we've seen shifting in the youth media world is that social media does create the opportunity to broaden our audience in ways that was very limited before. Anybody that's been doing youth media longer than 5 years, like it was like national film festivals and public access, which no one really knows if anyone watches public access even back then. So this has been a really great opportunity for our youth to get involved in the distribution process and using social media in the way that journalists would use social media to spread the word about their content, and then thinking about, like what Lucy was saying, how the process of how they use social media is sort of part of developing their own ethics as journalists and media makers as well.
So that actually brings up a good point. You know, the traditional outlets for youth media tend to be sort of specialty film festivals and public access. What happens to those kind of older, well-established methods of getting youth media out there when students are so engaged in social media? You know, do you find that students are more thrilled to get a ton of hits on social media than they would be to get their film into a film festival, say, or you know, have you seen that changed in the last 5-10 years?
I mean, so I think that, you know, we definitely live in an age, not just with our young people, with all of us, of like where we are looking for continuous affirmation and engagement from our peers and growing the network of what our peers mean, and that kind of energy and excitement is more real with the direct social media, but also, you know, what's exciting about that is the potential and possibility of the way that we can grow those communities as well. Somebody else.
Yeah. Anybody else see, you know, the effect of social media as a distribution platform among their students and the power of social media as a distribution platform?
I can speak a little bit to it. I mean, I know that, for example, we use Instagram, our Outside the Lens Instagram, as a platform for them, so that any work that they do here has the potential to be posted, and they get really excited about that because we have more of a following than they may have personally. So for them, it's a huge incentive and reason to even push their work further, is because they know that it's going to be reached to people outside of their networks and other people are going to see it. So we use it as also like an online digital portfolio in some ways.
I would also add to that with that generation, immediacy is such an important thing, and highlighting their work on social media is going to make it much more immediate. So we distribute our students' work through YouTube, our YouTube channels. We let them upload stuff to Facebook when possible, Instagram, as I mentioned. Then that way they can immediately share it with their friends, they can share it with their families. They can see how many people are viewing their work. They can see the comments that people are writing as well.
Great. I wanted to come back around, Alan, to your point about the how, you know, students or your young people are sort of moving into Instagram from Facebook. And now we have people leaving Facebook for news sites like LO that are promising, you know, less intensive monitoring, maybe.
Who's on LO?
Huh? I don't know if anybody's actually on LO. Is anybody?
Raise your hand.
I read about it. I'm not on it.
Okay.
Do you find it difficult to keep up with the landscape of social media to keep students engaged in sort of peer collaboration?
I mean, I find it incredibly difficult because I'm not much into social media myself, so they're constantly in classrooms bringing up something that I've never heard of, so I'm constantly having to do some research and catch up with them.
Yeah. Anybody anybody else have any issues of trying to keep up with social media in ways that their students outpace them?
I think that Alan brought up a good point in having your students kind of tell you what's going on if you're not sure about something, or checking in, what's the latest app, what are you using, and then bouncing that around multiple classrooms, I think is huge. And then they feel empowered to sort of to clue you in. For example, you know, there's a social media trend called the donut selfie that we did in a class. We actually had our students shoot a tutorial video for it, because they became pros at it. So I think that engaging them in that way is really important, so that they feel like they're a part of the conversation and it's not just a one-way conversation.
Yeah.
Well, and also like they are the experts, and you know, really how to address as practitioners of youth media like that changing dynamic and acknowledging it and seeing it really as an opportunity to sort of reinvent our pedagogies, you know, of how do we let students drive the conversation, how do we let them teach us and, you know, sort of drive distribution policies. I think that's I think, you know, again, Lucy brought up a really good point, is that, you know, we're talking about how you use social media for distribution, how you use it for promotion, but then there's how you may use it for civic engagement, but then there also becomes the necessity of discussing and teaching, you know, what are the ethics and expectations of that use. And I think that's where we as practitioners can offer the most guidance and mentorship, is just, you know, here's ways to be an adult in all corners of your life, also in social media.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lucia really summed up a lot of what we say to parents and teachers, which is that, you know, digital media is a great opportunity to be partners with young people, to let them take the load of teaching you about the technology, and you take the role of teaching them about, you know, the ethical considerations and all of the critical thinking skills that they need to know, which really are the same things we've been teaching kids forever, and they're going to be the same skills that they're going to apply no matter what the platform is. They're always going to have there's going to be times when they have to make ethical decisions, and there's going to be times when they're going to have to think critically about the technology and the content that they're consuming and creating.
Yeah, that's an interesting interesting point that I wanted to get into. Is you know, how do you deal with the fact that the ethics that you're teaching around social media can be both very similar to traditional ways of teaching about thoughtful media production, but can also be a little different in the sense that, you know, social media is so personal and so part of your private life that it can also offer some challenges, I think, for educators. What's the balance between the kinds of ethics and responsibilities that you might teach in any youth media environment and the kinds that might be specific to the social media world? That too big a question? So I guess one question is there a difference, right? You know, are there foundational things that we can teach across all media, and are there things that are specific to social media?
Oh. Someone else want to go first?
I just think that's so interesting because it's such an emerging question. You know, there's very few like resources out there, like skill checklists that you can just grab from the internet. And if any of you have them, please share. You know, of what are those specific things that you can address. I think that I know that a lot of our educators that are the most innovative in their classrooms are pulling from current events and stories and asking sort of questions based upon things that happen and things that come up, and using those to trigger conversations around what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And then again, of course, making media pieces themselves that are exploring the ethical questions of social media. How does bullying in social media, you know, relate? How is social media a tool for you know, good? Like one of our best videos produced in the past year was an anti-Chirac video. I don't know if anyone's heard the hashtag Chirac, but you know, there was a movement of a hashtag called anti-Chirac to say this is, you know, this term dishonors both Iraq and Chicago. And the whole video was documenting a Twitter guy's movement to do that. And so through the production of the media piece, all of these questions about what role does social media play in our lives came up. And honestly, I would say that is how we are uncovering those questions and asking those questions, because it's such a new question. Like, we don't have built-in curriculum at this point about these are the things you teach about social media.
Yeah. Well, a big part of what we're doing at MediaSmarts is developing educational materials on digital literacy and digital citizenship, providing teachers and parents with exactly those kinds of resources. And I think what we've realized is that nowadays young people become media producers earlier than we ever imagined. You because anytime they're using an interactive digital medium and an interactive digital tool, they're creating content, they're interacting with other people. And so we really have to be teaching them those essential skills of empathy, all the social emotional learning skills like emotional regulation. We have to be teaching them how those apply to the digital realm, really at the same time as they're learning how to apply those offline. And they have to learn about the ways that digital media may make us less likely to feel empathy. It may make us more likely to behave in ways we wouldn't otherwise. We know that kids don't see the online and offline worlds as separate. They see them as a seamless whole, and we have to approach educating them in the same way.
Great. Were you going to say something, Alan?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, Matthew brought up a great point. I mean, the biggest difference between social media and traditional media is that the students are constructing these media messages as they go. But, I mean, to speak to your point, some of the fundamental similarities between teaching all Everyone hear that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Some of the fundamental similarities between teaching all media is that, I mean, the critical thinking skills are the same. I mean, we're still talking about constructed media. We're talking about people constructing media, companies constructing media, culture constructing media, and then in turn constructing. In the critical thinking media text or any I think that still has to be the base of any media arts or media literacy education programming.
Yeah. Great. Let's see. So I'm curious a little bit about what's interesting to me about the social media coming into the youth media field and students becoming experts is that it can often put practitioners in a sort of a place of reflection about their own online lives. That can be kind of interesting. Have any of you had like an aha moment about your own online activity or online lives through the youth media stuff that you've facilitated and led? I mean, have any of you kind of thought a little bit about your own digital footprints based on the your own teaching?
I mean, I can. So we do a digital career path program where we teach young adults how to leverage internet tools for their own personal and career goals. And we were doing a lesson on LinkedIn, putting your resume up online, and then I showed them my LinkedIn resume because they were asking about it, and then it was bare bones, had no information. I felt embarrassed to even show it. The picture was poor. It was a great teaching moment because they just picked it apart. But so I had to really concentrate on preparing that before class.
So you needed to work on your own presentation so they could work on theirs.
Yeah.
So one of the new initiatives that we're working on at Free Spirit Media is an initiative called the Chicago Track, which is a professional development networking series for 18 to 25-year-olds. So that's really interesting because to break into the film industry. So that's interesting because we're trying to sort of prep them and develop them to have all the tools necessary to succeed in the 21st century job marketplace, whatever that means. And so, one of the sessions we're doing is about building your brand. And through building your brand, exploring really your identity and your personal brand, and through developing that curriculum, it's pretty overwhelming to consider all the different elements that one needs. Like, do you need a reel and a LinkedIn and an Instagram and a website? And and it's overwhelming, honestly, to really consider all of the spaces that we're sort of required to perform in and what we put out there to the world. And I think one of the things that it's brought up for me personally, and what I'd like to bring up with youth, is the knowing when to say, like, that's enough. Something that I've read recently is how we have to reconceptualize like work time and home time and instead think of like offline and online time. So how we recreate those boundaries in this world, you know, and this is something that I think that we are dealing with as professionals, and that we have an opportunity to just, wow, it's loud. We have an opportunity to discuss with our young people and challenge ourselves as well to ask, well, what is enough? You know, and what are the expectations for how we present ourselves online?
Yeah. Do any of you have the experience of, as you're discussing this stuff with students and going through the process, that they want to unplug, that they want to kind of be a little less, you know, involved in social media, or is it a more empowering, you know, experience for them where they have more to share, or is it both?
Well, I know from our research with young people, to study that we released last year of a little over 5,000 students in grades 4 to 11 across Canada, and about a third of them told us that they were concerned about how much time they spent online, and almost all of them told us that they had gone offline at some point or another to do things like spend more time with family or read a book or go outside. So they weren't talking specifically about social media, but definitely there is a sense, I think, among young people that it can be an issue. And you hear in our focus groups, we heard a lot of rueful talk about wanting to turn off the cell phone and go to sleep, but you know, worrying about what you were going to miss, about whether people were going to be talking about you, or if you were going to miss the drama that everyone was going to talk about the next morning.
Yeah. Alan, I'm wondering, you know, since the critical lens that you guys bring to all media at the LAMP is often somewhat antagonistic to, you know, corporate media, to advertising certainly. Do you take a similar approach to social media? Do you talk about things like privacy, data collection, the kinds of new issues that come up for students around social media?
Yeah, we talk about that quite a bit. And one thing that happens when we talk about digital footprint, digital security, privacy, is students can it can turn them off. They can get, it's a scary subject, really. So we really have to balance that, because we're not talking, because I mean, just with any kind of media, our goal isn't to make people hate media, because I love media, right? But it's just to be wary of these things, and to understand what you're getting yourself into when you're engaging with these online media specifically. But it's certainly a problem that when you bring up these issues, it can be kind of scary.
Yeah, I've certainly had the experience where I bring up with students a lot of things about, you know, data collection and privacy, and they really don't have the background knowledge to even know how to process it. You know, they're used to talking back to stereotypes and to advertisements, but the data and privacy issues that are coming up seem a lot scarier and more daunting. Somehow a little less easy to grapple with. I don't know if anybody else has had a similar experience with these kind of new issues. I mean, it's scary for me as an adult. I can only imagine what it's like for students who have been on Facebook since they were 10 years old, you know.
Yeah, our research showed the same thing, which was that about 2/3 of the students in our study, no one had ever talked to them about terms of service or privacy policies or data collection. 2/3 of them assumed that if a website had a privacy policy, that meant it wouldn't share their data with anyone else. So there's definitely a lot of naivete. Parents, certainly, it's the one area where parents weren't the main source of information. But at the same time, a really surprising number of students wanted to know more about how corporations collect their data. So it's something that they're becoming aware of. It's something they want to know more about. But as you say, it's in some ways a really forbidding topic. It's an area where teachers and parents really feel out of their depth, as so many of us do.
And what role do we think that, you know, out of school or informal learning contexts, the kinds that youth media have excelled in for decades, what role do these environments have in helping students to navigate these issues. You know, when parents, like you said, don't know, and sometimes, you know, we'll have a another webinar next week with some K-12 representatives and practitioners. But you know, a lot of times, you know, teachers, librarians are just as you know, daunted by this stuff. It seems like youth media provides a space that might be a little different from those other spaces, and I'm wondering what strengths you guys think that the youth media field brings to the table.
Well, I think it's a fresh start, you know. I think that, you know, it's stuff that when we were just getting into social media that nobody was around to educate us on. And so we kind of were flying blind into it, and then you sort of learn, right? And through our research and contacts, we've picked up this information that we are passing along to this next generation of its essentially content providers, because, like you said, Lucia, the kids are telling the news. The kids are writing. It's sort of the, you know, the tables have turned. They're creating media that's being heard. And so I think as a new generation, we have a huge opportunity to sort of start fresh and to create a generation of informed creators, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
I think an advantage that youth media organizations have is that we are used to having difficult conversations with young people about the, you know, what they are creating, consuming, how they're distributing, you know, of being really critical thinkers and deconstructing, you know, and so we've been doing that for some time, and we're used to having those conversations, and so now when sort of faced with this new topic that everyone's trying to navigate around, that we have some structures that are helpful for beginning the conversation and engaging youth honestly and in a way that values their perspective as well as our experience as educators.
And as you said, David, earlier, that social media is so personal. It's seen as such a personal thing that maybe the traditional school environment doesn't feel like a safe environment to speak about things that are so personal. But youth media learning environment, where kids are already used to pursuing their interests and having their interests validated, maybe that seems like a safer environment to explore these issues and to talk about personal things.
Great. All right, we have about a little over 10 minutes left in the hangout here, and I would like to give everybody an opportunity to talk about some of the work that they're doing right now. You can connect it to our ideas, or if there's something that is particularly exciting. And I want to end on Matthew, who can give us a preview of some upcoming events for Media Literacy Week, of course. My only plug, again, is the NAMLE 2015 conference in Philadelphia. The call for proposals has gone out, so all of you doing really innovative work in the youth media field and the media literacy field, please submit. And so let's start with Lucia. What do you guys have going on at Free Spirit?
Well, there's a few things that I want to tell you about. One, very briefly, the Chicago Youth Media Network, which is a coalition of 10 to 12 youth media organizations, is working on an initiative for the past 3 years called Nuff Said 2.0. We're going to be launching in January 2015. It is a youth-generated and led social media-driven distribution site, starting really for Chicago youth, but a place where young media makers and creators can bring their media to the table and share. And we've been working with some developers for quite some time. Social media is a big part of that. So there's a wall where people can actually like comment and post videos, and every time someone posts content, they can comment on that content, and you have a community. It's based off of, you know, Facebook or any sort of user-led community, and we're really excited about it. We think that it's a big next step, both, you know, on a local level. Chicago has so many young media makers, but also on a national, international level as well, of, you know, what is the next step of youth media distribution, and we hope this is part of that puzzle. So stay tuned for Nuff Said, and yeah, there's other things, but we'll have more time together soon.
And we'll provide a lot of links for everybody in our follow-up materials too. So that's great.
Great.
Yeah, and I should say at this point, there's a lot of really great local and national hubs for youth media. We have one here in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Youth Media Collaborative. I got to give a plug for. But there are a lot of these collaboratives all over the U.S. that I think are really looking for ways to get that kind of national connectivity that social media in part can help provide. That's a lot more visible what youth media organizations all around the country are doing. So it's really cool to hear that you guys are working on raising that national and international, of course, profile.
And we'd love, like I said, we're in beta testing now, and we'd love to share the link with some youth media practitioners and get your experienced advice and thoughts about how we can adjust the site as we're moving forward.
Great. All right, Lucy.
Lucia, that sounds really cool. I know that if that was to expand to our neck of the woods, we would definitely love to provide content and so on, because that's such a great outlet, in terms of distribution. On a similar note, we're working on a 60-second film festival that has kind of an international component to where we bring together have an online film festival and then also a physical film festival here in San Diego, starting with the 60-second format. Because I think it's a really great sort of platform on which you can build in terms of storytelling in the form of filmmaking. We are also developing our curriculum of course, with the Common Core standards, and really trying to get our portal sort of along the lines of matching what's in the core standards. And we're working we have photography and writing, but now we're getting video curriculum developed as well, which is really exciting for us.
Great. Yeah, the connections to Common Core are going to be really interesting. Next week when we have our conversation with K-12 practitioners, we'll probably be talking a lot about the Common Core and social media and the new media environment that we got to navigate here. Alan?
Yeah, so we recently relaunched our website, so everyone should take a look at that. It's thelamp.org. There's a lot of great resources for teachers and students there. You can check out our student productions, our students' critical of commercials and music videos and such. Also want to plug, hopefully you can see this, it's going to be flipped obviously, the Media Breaker. You go to MediaBreaker.org. That's the first ever free online video editing software specifically for the remixing of third-party content. Go there and explore critical thinking, fair use. We're also in the process of widening that learning environment to include learning pathways that teachers can design, badges for students in fair use, critical thinking, video remixing, video editing. Yeah, so MediaBreaker.org.
Cool. Yeah, great little fair use tool, great big fair use tool, I should say, from the LAMP. Very nice. And Matthew, can you give us a little preview of things to come for Media Literacy Week?
Sure. Well, it is next week. Every year it's the first full week in November, and it happens that this year that is actually the first week. And we've got a kickoff event on Monday, and then really an enormous number of events, as I said, across Canada and outside of Canada as well. You can go to MediaLiteracyWeek.ca and click on the Events tab to see them. We're adding new ones every day. We have the largest number of collaborators we've ever had, more than 100 this year. Aside from that, we recently launched a new program called Stay on the Path, which is a suite of resources for parents and teachers to help them teach kids about all kinds of empathy and social emotional learning skills as they relate to being online. So teaching those really essential skills of using media responsibly and also using it in a positive way from an early age. And finally, on November 20th, which is the 25th anniversary of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, we're going to be relaunching our Media Toolkit for Youth, and that's one of our earliest resources, but we've updated it to include, of course, all of the tools that are available to young people through social media as well as traditional media to get their message out, whatever their message may be. So it really is a really nice little resource that gives kids a whole lot of tools for getting access to the media in a whole lot of different ways.
Great, and I'll give you a visual plug here for Media Literacy Week.
Thanks.
Got it here up on the screen share. That's MediaLiteracyWeek.ca. Lots of cool events coming up. And so that will do it for. Oops, that'll do it for our hangout today. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Lucia Palmerini from Free Spirit Media in Chicago, Matthew Johnson from MediaSmarts in Canada, Lucy Eagleson from Outside the Lens in San Diego, and Alan Barry from The Lamp in New York City. Thanks, guys, so much. We'll be putting up some highlights of this conversation online, and we hope to talk to all of you guys soon.
Great.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.